The
but
hot
compare
trending
that
scene
to 2020. She didn't do as well as Joe Biden, okay? Donald Trump did better than he did in 2020. Kind of same story. I'll show you Virginia, all right? A lot of people point to this as maybe that would be a place Donald Trump would pick up or show some more strength. In fact, Harris underperformed Biden. Donald Trump did better than he did 4 years ago. And I'll show you one more just to kind of make the point.
Yeah.
Minnesota, right? Home state of the vice presidential nominee, right? For the Democrats. Well, she just underperformed Joe Biden there, too. You get the idea. There were shifts toward Donald Trump all over the country. Not huge shifts, but just enough. Just enough that he could, tip that sequence of states. It was like, it's like running the table just by a little bit in state after state.
Yeah, and in his campaign, he was very confident, so he knew something that maybe a lot of us didn't.
He turned out a lot of lower propensity voters, people who came out to vote just for him.
That's right. All right. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right. Now let's go to Tony, who had a late night and an early morning. We appreciate your around-the-clock coverage in Florida. Tony, what's up?
Hey, buddy. Thank you very much, Nate. Good morning again. The sun did rise this morning. The world had kept on turning. And yes, Donald Trump is once again president-elect in these United States. I mentioned all of that, and I could mention more, because going into Election Day, most Trump supporters said that if Harris had been elected, they would be feeling scared right now, according to a CBS News poll. And an even greater number of Harris supporters said that they'd feel the same way. And when you think about it, it's no wonder when so many prominent Democrats had warned throughout this election cycle that democracy is on the line. While on the Trump side, we saw Elon Musk, no less, tweet, quote, "Very few Americans realize that if Trump is not elected, this will be the last election." And that's not even counting all the things that the candidates themselves have said about the threats to democracy. Now, look, we are, to be sure, an imperfect union, but we are a democracy, the world's oldest, in fact, and that was true yesterday. It is true today, and it'll be true tomorrow. I mention all that, though, because people should not be scared, but it's understandable if they're confused by one another. Caitlin Huey-Burns is here to follow up on what the Trump campaign has done to get this victory and what they plan to do now. People should not be frightened necessarily, but they do have anxiety because they're not sure what's going to happen next. Can you offer any clarity about the priorities of the Trump administration?
Well, the biggest priority that this administration to-be has said is on the issue of immigration, mass deportation. CBS has done a lot of reporting about what that would look like, how much that would cost the U.S. government, and what that would be like to implement, and the kind of fear that that could install in immigrant communities. But that has been a priority of this administration. The other issue, of course, that has hovered over all of this is the economy, right? This is a president-elect now who has talked about imposing tariffs essentially on everything. And so there are lots of questions about what that could do to the U.S. economy, what that could do to the consumer. But all of this speaks to the two issues that have fueled his support this whole time. This election has been, for Donald Trump, as much about immigration as anything else. Time and time again, every voter that we spoke to who was supporting Trump made mention of the border as an issue of security, but also, as Donald Trump would talk about it, as part of the fabric, in his words, of the country. And so that really speaks to kind of the cultural divides that we're seeing as well.
You know, I mentioned off the top, people should not be worried about democracy. Democracy will continue to exist, but you can't understand the fear when you talk about whether people will be able to remain in the country where they may have lived for years, even decades. People will be able to access the health care that they were able to access yesterday, or an administration or a Supreme Court ruling ago. So it is a complex and layered issue here, but we are going to have to muddle through it.
And it's also important to note that Donald Trump could be assuming the presidency potentially with full control of government, not only the Senate, which Republicans are poised to have won, but also perhaps the House. And also, because of that Supreme Court ruling recently on immunity, there are questions about the scope, or how he sees his scope of presidential power. And
then also the ability to appoint yet more federal judges who are sympathetic to what he would like to do with this country. So maybe I revised my opening, Nate. Maybe people should be scared. For now, for the latest on the Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign, we're going to go now to Nancy Cordes before I send it back to our beautiful studio in New York. Nancy's at the White House for us. Nancy, good morning to you. What is the mood, if you can characterize it, among Democrats?
Obviously, it's gloomy, Tony, but what's interesting is that we are getting mostly silence from the Harris camp right now as we await word that Kamala Harris has called Donald Trump to concede. We assume that that will happen soon if it hasn't happened already, but we haven't gotten any guidance on the timing. And we're still waiting to hear what time she plans to address the nation from Howard University today as well. One person we are hearing from, former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney, who crossed party lines to campaign for Harris because she argued that Trump is a danger to democracy. This morning, Cheney said America has a new president-elect and that, quote, all Americans are bound, whether we like the outcome or not, to accept the results of our elections. Central to her opposition to Trump, of course, was the fact that he did not accept the results of the 2020 election, which led to the Capitol insurrection on January 6th. 2021. Here at the White House, the press aides normally start to trickle in around 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, but I just went back and checked again a few minutes ago. The door is still locked. People are laying low. It seems clear, Tony, that they want to give Vice President Harris the opportunity to speak for herself first before they begin weighing in.
Yeah, Nancy, thank you very much. And Gail, as I send it back to you in New York, it occurs to me that this is one of the more important speeches potentially in Kamala Harris's career. There's the opportunity to do something very memorable. One thinks of John McCain's concession speech to Barack Obama in 2008 and Al Gore's concession speech to George Bush in the year 2000. A lot of healing can happen depending on the words she chooses.
Yep, everybody wants to see what she's going to say and how she says it. You're right about that, Tony. Thank you very much. Former President Trump's win came as a surprise to a lot of people in this country, including, it seems, many in the campaign of Vice President Kamala Harris. For more, we're joined by CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist Joel Payne. Joel, good morning to you this morning. How are you processing the news from last night?
Oh, Gail, I'm feeling about how every Democrat is feeling around the country, a little shell-shocked. But as we analyze what happened, dig through the data, I think there are some clear trends that come through. It does seem like there is a chasm with how Democrats are communicating to working-class Americans across racial lines, across geographic lines, and that's something that has to be remedied. And you do have to give the president, President Trump, and his team credit for understanding how to reach those folks. I think Democrats have a lot of work to do to learn more about how voters are feeling. When I was speaking to you last night, Gail, I said, people keep firing our presidents. They fired the one that we just elected last night. They just fired Joe Biden in absentia. You know, we're in a place now where folks don't seem happy with leadership out of Washington, and they are going to default for change, and that's what we saw last night.
Well, all eyes will be on Kamala Harris when she decides to address the nation later today. What do you think is the right tone she needs to set? Because a lot of her supporters are still very shell-shocked.
Oh, I'm not concerned about the tone that Kamala Harris is going to set. She's a patriot. She's someone who is going to respect not only the rule of law, but the will of the American people. That's not the scenario we were concerned about. We weren't concerned about Kamala Harris having to accept the results of the election. We were concerned about the shoe being on the other foot. I think that she will find her way to bind together the feelings of her coalition, to explain what this means for Democrats, and to also, send well wishes to the incoming administration to actually be genuine in any desire to bring the country together. I heard the conversation earlier with Tony, and I understood what he and Caitlin were saying related to how the sun still comes up today. But I will tell you, for millions of Americans, they did not sleep last night, and they feel targeted, and they feel vulnerable, and that's real. And they feel like they have a president-elect, presuming a president-elect who does not want the best for them and their family. I love people in my life who both voted for Donald Trump and also feel vulnerable today. And I'm sure millions of Americans feel the same way.
So, Joel, let me ask you, Tony was talking about concession speeches. I recall as a child hearing Ted Kennedy's concession speech where he said the dream, I'm paraphrasing here, the fight goes on and the dream will never die. For you and for the people in the Democratic Party who are thinking about what is going to happen over the next 4 years, given that CBS News is projecting that the Republicans could take control of the Senate and possibly the House of Representatives, are you disheartened? Are you disillusioned? What is your fight, the Democratic Party's fight, going forward, given that we might have a unified government?
Well, I'm not disillusioned because I still believe, and I've said many times, there is a majority of this country that does not like Donald Trump. Now, it does seem like Donald Trump has grown his share of the electorate who believe in him. And, you know, Kamala Harris, I think, wanted to make the race this election a referendum on Donald Trump. It seems like she did that, and it does seem like the American people made a pretty clear verdict on that. But I think there are still millions of Americans who agree with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, what Democrats want to do. I think where they're frustrated is with the messaging and the packaging, and I think that that's something that Democrats need to take to heart, and I'm certain that they will. There are talented people in the Democratic Party, young up-and-coming people, Kamala Harris being one of them, Josh Shapiro, Josh Stein, the incoming governor of North Carolina, Gavin Newsom, many, many others who I'm leaving out right now, so I'll stop naming them. But there are Democrats who can galvanize this country, but I think right now there are a lot of folks who are in a healing posture and who are trying to make sense of the results.
Was Wes Moore the name you were searching for?
Wes Moore is certainly a good name. I'm going to stop naming my Democratic governors before I get in trouble and forget one.
All right, Joel Payne, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. Ahead, why the gender gap didn't play a big role in this election as many were expecting. But first, it is time to check your local weather. We'll be right back.
Get your home ready for holiday gatherings with Stanley Steamer. We take care of the deep cleaning, so you don't have to. Make your home shine for your special occasions, because it's not clean until it's Stanley Steamer Clean.
Shake up your shower with a flavor for every feeling. This Dove freshens you up. This Dove winds you down. This Dove leaves you glowing. And this Dove keeps you going. So whatever care you care about, there's a Dove for everybody.
I brought in Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein. Those who tried me felt more energy in just 2 weeks. Here, I'll take that.
Ensure Max Protein. 30 grams protein, 1 gram sugar, and a protein blend to feed muscles up to 7 hours.
Stay ahead of your moderate to severe eczema and show off clearer skin and less itch with Dupixent, the #1 prescribed biologic by dermatologists and allergists that helps heal your skin from within. Serious allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Tell your doctor about new or worsening eye problems such as eye pain or vision changes, including blurred vision, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop asthma medicines without talking to your doctor. Ask your eczema specialist about Dupixent.
At Ashley, it's not just Black Friday. It's the Ashley Mommy Needs This More Than Anything Else in the World Black Friday event. But don't wait, because it's also the Ashley You Can Get 0% Interest for 72 Months Black Friday event.
Ahead, we'll look at how the issue of abortion rights played out on the campaign trail after Donald Trump took credit for ending Roe versus Wade. This is CBS Mornings.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will. You go, gal. That's right.
Let me see if you can find me.
I want to make sure that my voice is heard, but also that I lift up other voices.
You can't write a better script.
Yeah, boy!
It's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
How fast do you think you were going?
195 miles an hour. This is incredible.
How close did you actually come to being killed?
That close.
Is this brain surgery without a knife?
It is.
What risk do these children pose to Russia?
I'm not sure the world is prepared for this change.
Definitely not.
Who's the best coach in college football today?
Let me see a mirror.
It's time for the CBS News original, 60 Minutes. Sundays on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy.
And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
I'm a voracious consumer of information and constantly curious. I want to know the basic facts of every issue and to press into the heart of the matter. Information is the currency of democracy, and that's what we bring to the table every Sunday.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you.
Big news coming out of the NFL. A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With highlights.
What a finish at the final round of play.
And in-depth analysis.
Can they three-peat? Tony Romo joins the conversation.
What can you say about this game?
When you need your sports in a snap,
we're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
Find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
How fast do you think you were going? 195 miles an hour.
This is incredible.
How close did you actually come to being killed?
That close.
Is this brain surgery without a knife?
It is.
What risk do these children pose to Russia?
I'm not sure the world is prepared for this change.
Definitely not.
Who's the best coach in college football today?
Let me see a mirror.
It's time for the CBS News original 60 Minutes. Sundays on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
It was almost like being face-to-face with the devil.
Women riding bicycles dismembered.
She just vanished.
48 hours reports.
I fought and fought.
911, what is your emergency?
She disappeared off the face of the earth.
Ever think in your wildest dreams someone might want to kill you?
This almost became a game of psychological warfare.
You're caught. You're gonna go down.
Stream 48 hours, 24/7.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective.
CBS News. Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan, Sunday on CBS.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
I never learned anything from hearing myself talk.
On CBS Sunday morning.
We were talking a lot before the election about the female gender gap among voters. You heard about this. At the same time, the Trump campaign told us to watch how many men were backing him. So let's bring back Ed O'Keefe for a look at the gender gap in our exit polls. Ed, always good to see you. You know, we kept hearing that about that secret vote, the secret Republican women that would be, you know, in the booths alone and would vote their values. Clearly, there was no secret Republican women.
Well, it wasn't an overwhelming number of them, at least, yeah. I mean, look, the vice president won women, but she only won them by 10 points. You go back 4 years, President Biden won it by a far larger margin, 57 to 42%. So something was up there, despite a woman being on the ballot, despite the changes that were made in women's reproductive health care in the last several years. Enough women stuck with the president-elect.
Yes.
And got to call him that now. And she couldn't pull it off. That's one real problem for them. I think this other one,
What's the other one?
that's going to be studied now for several years to come by both parties is the fact that he cut into the Latino advantage as much as he did. 45% of the Latino vote voted for Donald Trump. Think about that 8 years ago.
Who's talking about mass deportation.
Exactly. He was talking about mass deportation, who has said all the sorts of things, or his supporters at his events have said these things. But it seems at this point that it's caked in.
So how do you explain that, Ed?
Well, because for Latino, increasing number of them, many I spoke to out on the show, many others did, they say, look, This is a party, the Democrats, who come to us every 2 to 4 years asking for our votes, telling us they're going to take up things like immigration and they're going to fight people like Donald Trump, and they never do anything about it. And this Biden administration was a fantastic example of that, I would argue. First day on the job, they introduced a big, massive, comprehensive immigration bill and sent it to Congress, and that was it. But they had the talking point for the next 4 years. Oh, well, the first thing we sent to Congress was an immigration bill. They could have taken it up. No, the president never held meetings about it, never gave speeches about it, never used the bully pulpit. And guess what? Latino voters noticed. And guess what? They held it against Kamala Harris. They didn't do anything about border security that he could have done by either leaving Trump administration policies in place or putting in those executive orders sooner, or going to Central America and not botching a TV interview that destroyed her credibility on the issue.
But they said they had that bipartisan bill that Trump
and there again, the White House could have worked, more aggressively, many would argue, to get it done. And then why were they holding those conversations in the year right before the election? Again, they got called on it by Latino voters, and I think there's going to be a real reckoning in the party about, look at what Donald Trump did. He appealed to their economic concerns. He appealed to their safety concerns. Because we know through research through the years that once immigrants get here, they suddenly are among those very concerned about illegal immigration.
That's exactly right.
They got here legally.
There's historical precedent for that, and we talked about it before. It began in the 19th century when Irish immigrants first started arriving here, Italian immigrants. A generation later, they are part of the very same coalition that you're describing here. It's no different for Latinos who have been here for multiple generations. Let me ask you something that we were talking about with Joel Payne. What does this mean for the Democratic Party going forward, their strategy? Do you think that they are going to have a come to Jesus moment where they look back and they say to themselves, maybe when Joe Biden said he was a transitional president, we should have allowed a nominating process?
I have a feeling that a lot of governors this morning, Governor Newsom, Governor Whitmer, Governor Shapiro, Governor Pritzker, maybe even Governor Moore, are waking up and thinking, maybe I should have done something about it. But not in July when he dropped out, but a year ago or right after the midterms. And I think, we talk about all this ambition and this talent in the Democratic Party. I think many of them are thinking it's time to step up now and see what we can do in 4 years. A lot of lessons to be learned from this, though.
A lot of lessons to be learned.
Self-inflicted.
Ed, thank you. All right, coming up, Republican Congressman Byron Donalds will join us in just a bit and talk about President-elect's return to the White House and how the next Congress is likely to help or hurt him. Your local news is coming up next.